Welcome to 21st Sports recap and reaction for Game 2 of the ALDS between the Texas Rangers and the Toronto Blue Jays, played October 9th, 2015. And what a game this was. It went 14 innings. We're going to go over every at-bat. We're going to go over the stats, and we're going to give our breakdown and analysis. We'll start off in the first inning, and starting the game for the Blue Jays, Marcus Stroman. On the other side for Texas, Cole Hamels. But in the top of the first, DeShields led off the game with a double. Sinso Chu then singled to center and drove in DeShields, and it was 1-0 Texas with no outs after just two batters. So now Prince Fielder would come to the plate. He hit a single that moved Chu over to third, so he had runners on the corners, still no outs. Mitch Moreland then reached on a fielder's choice, and an error by Russell Martin allowed Sinso Chu to come across home, and it was 2-0 Texas over Toronto. So the ball was hit to the first baseman, Chris Calabello, and then he threw it home, and an error by Martin, and Sinso Chu scores. So now Andros would ground out, Hamilton would then ground into a double play, and this inning would come to a close, but not after the Rangers had put 2 runs on the scoreboard. Well, the top half of the inning. So now to the bottom half of the first inning, Cole Hamels on the mound for the Rangers. He got Ben Revere to ground out. And then Josh Donaldson took him deep, 419 feet, as he jacked one over the center field wall. And it was now a 1-run game with the score Texas 2, Toronto 1. Jose Bautista then fouled out to first. Encarnacion then flied out. And that would do it for the bottom half of the first. But Toronto had put up a run, and so it was 2-1 after one. So now the top of the second, Stroman still on the mound for the Jays. He walked Odor to lead off the inning. But then you got Gimenez to ground out. Odor moved over to third, and Alberto hit a sac fly. Odor tagged up and scored, and now it was a 2-run lead for the Rangers with the score 3-1 Texas over Toronto. DeShields would ground out, and that would do it for the top half of the second. So now to the bottom half of the second, Hamels on the mound for Texas, and Tulowitzki would reach first on an error by Alberto, who had just got that sac fly in the top half of the inning. And so Tulo was on, and he was not accredited towards Hamel because of the error. Calabello would hit a ground rule double, and so Tulo moved to third. So now you had runners on second and third with no outs, and Russell Martin hit a single to right field. Tulo scored, and Calabello moved to third. So now you had runners on the corners, and it was now a 1-run game once again with the score Texas 3, Toronto 2. The run was unearned because Tulo reached on an error. So now Kevin Pillar came to the plate. He grounded into a double play, but Calabello scored, and this game was tied at 3. So now Goins would ground out, and that would end the second inning, but not after the Blue Jays had added 2 runs. So now on to the top of the third, game tied up at 3. Stroman would set the side down in order as he bookended the inning with strikeouts, striking out Chu, then getting Fielder to ground out, and then Moreland struck out. So now we moved on to the bottom of the third. Revere would ground out, Donaldson struck out, Bautista hit a single, and then Encarnacion grounded out, and that would do it for the bottom of the third inning as Hamels got out of that one unscathed. Now on to the top of the fourth, and Stroman would set down the side in order for the second straight inning as he got Andrews to ground out, Hamilton to ground out, and Odor struck out. So now on to the bottom of the fourth, and Hamels would set down the side in order as he struck out Tulo, Calabello grounded out, and Martin grounded out. So now on to the top of the fifth, and Stroman would set down the side in order for the third straight inning as he retired 9 batters in a row during this stretch. So you got Gimenez to ground out, Alberto struck out, and DeShields grounded out. So now on to the bottom of the fifth, Pillar led off with a double. Goins then sacrificed to move Pillar over to third. That brought up Ben Revere. He hit a single to right, and Pillar came in easily. And now Toronto is in the lead for the first time in this game with the score 4-3 Jays over the Rangers. Donaldson then flew out, and Bautista popped out to the catcher. and so the 5th would come to a close, but not after the Blue Jays took the lead, scoring a run. So now in the top of the 6th, Stroman still on the mound. He would get Shin-Soo Choo to line out, and then Fielder grounded out, and then he walked Moreland. So he had retired 11 in a row, and he walks Moreland. And now Andros would come to the plate. He hit a single, so he had first and second with 2 outs. Josh Hamilton at the plate, and he strikes out. So that would take us to the bottom of the 6th. Hamels would set down the side in order. He got Encarnacion to ground out, and then he struck out Tulowitzki and Colabello. So now on to the 7th inning. Stroman still on the mound for Toronto. He would get Odor to ground out, Gimenez to ground out, and Alberto to line out as he set the side down in order at the top of the 7th. So on to the bottom of the 7th, Hamels would set the side down in order as he bookended it with strikeouts, striking out Martin, grounding out Pilar, and then get Goins out with the strikeout. So now we're headed to the top of the 8th. Stroman still on the mound for the Jays. He let up a leadoff single to DeShields, and that would do it for Marcus Stroman as Brett Cecil would come in to relieve him. He got Shin-Soo Choo out on a sacrifice that moved DeShields over to second. Fielder struck out, and now Napoli would come in to pinch hit for Moreland. Napoli hit a single to right center. DeShields scored, and this game was tied at 4. Napoli was then caught stealing, and that would do it for the top half of the 8th. But the Rangers had tied this game up with a run scored, and now we're headed to the bottom of the 8th. Sam Dyson would be on the mound for Texas as he would relieve Hamels. Napoli, of course, at first base as he had come in to pinch hit for Moreland in the top half of the inning. Revere would reach on an infield single. Donaldson then lined out. Revere stole second. Batista struck out. Encarnacion was intentionally walked with first base open, and so that brought up Tulowitzki, and Tulowitzki grounded out as he left Revere stranded on second. So now on to the top of the 9th, tied at 4. Roberto Osuna would come in to pitch for the Jays, relieving Cecil, and he would set the side down in order. He's got Andros to fly out, Hamilton struck out, and Odor grounded out. So now on to the bottom of the 9th. Jake Diekman in for the Rangers as he relieved Dyson, and he would set the side down in order, getting Colabello to fly out, Martin struck out, and Pilar struck out. So now we are headed to extra innings with this game tied at 4 apiece. And in the top of the 10th, Osuna still on the mound for the Jays. He'd set the side down in order as he got Gimenez to line out, Alberto grounded out, and DeShields grounded out. So now to the bottom of the 10th, Jake Diekman still on the mound for the Rangers, and he set down the side in order once again as he got Goins to ground out, Revere popped out, and Donaldson grounded out. So now on to the top of the 11th, Mark Lowe on the mound for the Jays, relieving Osuna, and he struck out Shin-Soo Choo. He walked Prince Fielder, and Venable would come in to run for Prince Fielder. Napoli then walked, so he had 2 on. And then Andros grounded into a fielder's choice, and that moved Venerable over to third. Napoli was out at second, and Andros was on first. So he had runners on the corners with 2 outs, and Loop would come in to relieve Lowe, and Hamilton at the plate, and Hamilton flies out. So we're headed to the bottom of the 11th. Sean Tolson on the mound for Texas as he relieved Diekman, and he would set down the side in order as the relief pitching by Texas continued to be dominant here in extra innings. Batista popped out, Encarnacion struck out, and Tulowitzki flied out. So now on to the top of the 12th, and Loop still in for Toronto as he had come in the 11th, and he got Odor to fly out, and then he was done for the day as Sanchez came in to relieve Loop. Gimenez grounded out, and Alberto struck out. So that would do it for the top of the 12th. Now in the bottom of the 12th, Tolson still on the mound for Texas. He allowed a leadoff single to Colabello. Now Pompey would come in to pinch run for Colabello, and Martin popped out. Pilar struck out. Pompey then stole second. He then stole third, and Goins grounded out. So that would end the bottom of the 12th as Pompey was stranded 90 feet away from being the go-ahead and winning run in this game. And we were headed to the top of the 13th. Sanchez still on the mound for the Jays. Smoke in at first base as a defensive substitution as he replaced Pompey. So now DeShields struck out, Shin-Soo Choo grounded out, Venable hit a single, and then Napoli grounded out. So now we were headed to the bottom of the 13th. Keone Kela would be on the mound for Texas as he relieved Tolson. He got Revere to ground out. He struck out Donaldson, then walked Batista. Encarnacion then flew out, and that took us to the top of the 14th. LaTroy Hawkins in for the Blue Jays as he relieved Sanchez. He got Elvis Andrus to line out. Josh Hamilton then lined out as he continued to struggle in this series. And then Odor reached on an infield single. Gimenez then singled, and Odor made it to second. And at second base, it was a close play that they ended up reviewing as to whether Odor's foot had come off the base. It's tough to say. You can make the argument that his cleat was still on the base, although it did look like his foot was off, but he was ruled safe at second. So now that brought up Alberto. He hit a single to center, and Odor came around from second. Gimenez made it to third, and Alberto ended up advancing to second on the throw, and it was now 5-4 as the Rangers took the lead in the top of the 14th in extra innings, and now Hawkins was done as Hendricks would come in to relieve him. DeShields at the plate, and he hit an infield single that scored Gimenez, and Alberto moved to third, and it was now 6-4 as the Rangers added one more as they were now up by 2 runs over the Jays in the top of the 14th. DeShields stole second, and then Shin-Soo Choo lined out to end the inning, or the top half of the inning, as we would move to the bottom of the 14th, and the Jays would need to score 2 runs to keep this game going, or 3 potentially to win it in the bottom of the 14th, or they would go down 0-2 in this series. So Ross Ohlendorf on the mound for the Rangers. Stubbs in at center field as a defensive substitution. Ohlendorf relieving Kela. And Ohlendorf, the first batter he faced, Troy Tulowitzki, and he struck him out. He got him looking. Then Smoke came to the plate, and he struck him out swinging. Martin was then hit by a pitch, and then he was allowed to take second on a fielder's indifference. So that brought up Pilar with Martin on second. Pilar representing the tying run, and Pilar strikes out swinging as Ohlendorf comes in and gets 3 Ks in the bottom of the 14th to secure the victory, pick up the save as the Rangers win 6-4, and they go up 2-0 in this series. This one's all but done as now they're going back to Texas to play 2. You know, the fans at the ballpark in Arlington are going to have their broomsticks in the stands. But let's look at the stats in this game, and there's a decent amount of them. They played 14 innings. And Cole Hamels, 7 innings pitched. He allowed just 2 runs earned, 4 runs overall, but 2 of those were not accredited to him because of errors. He did strike out 6, and he did not have any walks. He allowed 6 hits, and of course 1 home run. Pretty good performance by Hamels. I thought it was a pretty good performance by both starting pitchers, as Stroman pitched 7 innings as well. He allowed 3 earned runs, 4 runs overall, as one of those runs was not earned because of an error. He had 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, and 5 hits allowed. But going back over to Texas, in relief, Dyson pitched 1 inning. He did not allow any runs, only 1 hit. He had 1 strikeout and 1 walk. Jake Diekman continues to shine in this series. He had amazing 2 innings in Game 1, and here in Game 2, no hits, no earned runs, 2 strikeouts. Really good relief performance by Jake Diekman. Tolson, 2 innings pitched, 2 strikeouts, no runs, just 1 hit. A strong performance by him as well. Keone Kela, 1 strikeout, 1 walk, no hits, and no earned runs in 1 inning pitched, and he picked up the win in this game. A strong performance by him. And Ohlendorf with the 3 strikeouts as he gets the save in the bottom of the 14th. No earned, no hits. Russell Martin did get hit by a pitch, but still the 3 strikeouts there, very clutch by Ohlendorf. And for the Jays, as I said, Stroman with the 7 innings. But Cecil in relief, 1 inning pitched, and he had 1 strikeout, 1 hit, no earned runs, no walks. Asana, 2 innings pitched, 1 strikeout, no hits, no earned runs, no walks. Low 2 2/3 of an inning, actually. Not 2 2/3, but 2/3 of an inning. 2 walks and a strikeout, no hits, no runs. Loop, 2/3 of an inning, no hits, no earned runs. Sanchez, 1 2/3 innings, and he had 2 strikeouts, 1 hit, no earned runs. LaTroy Hawkins picked up the loss in this game. He allowed 2 earned runs off of 3 hits. And Hendricks came in and pitched 1/3 of an inning, and he allowed no earned runs and 1 hit. So Hawkins came in and blew the game. He really didn't get much done there. He did get 2 outs, but he allowed those 2 runs there in the 14th. And a little bit of controversy with the call there at second with Odor. They said, it's tough to say from the angle. Kind of looks like his foot went off. But at the same time, I said, with the cleats, maybe the cleat was touching the base. That's from the looks of it. It's so close. It's so hard to tell. And they said, the only thing I could figure is thumb was like, well, his cleat is touching the base. So, because it was barely looks like it could have been off. But technically, the cleats are longer than the sole of the shoe. And maybe the cleat was on second there. So, Odor coming up big again. And in this game, although he was just 1 for 5, he came across home twice. He had 2 runs, as he had 1 walk in the game, 1 strikeout. DeShields with a big game, 3 for 7, 1 RBI, 2 runs. He struck out once as well. Sinso Chu, 1 for 6, 1 RBI, 1 run. He struck out twice. Prince Fielder, 1 for 4. He walked once, struck out once. Venable, 1 for 1. Napoli, 1 for 2 with an RBI and a walk. So he came up pretty big after pinch hitting from Moreland there late in the game. And Andros was 1 for 6. Gimenez, 1 for 6 with a run scored. Alberto, 1 for 5 with 2 RBIs and 2 strikeouts. And for Toronto, Donaldson had that home run early on in the first inning. That was his only hit of the game, as he was 1 for 6, the 1 RBI, the 1 run scored. He struck out twice. Revere, 2 for 6, 1 RBI. Batista, 1 for 5. Calabello, whose name I've been butchering the whole video, I apologize. But he was 2 for 5, he had 1 run scored. Martin, 1 for 5 with 1 RBI. Pilar, 1 for 6 with 1 run scored. He struck out 3 times. Tulo struck out 3 times as well. And actually, for that matter, Donaldson, like I said, struck out twice. Martin struck out twice. The Jays, and for the Rangers, Sinso Chu and Hamilton both struck out twice, as Hamilton continuing to struggle, 0 for 6 in this game, but still the Rangers getting it done somehow, some way. That's the thing in postseason play. A lot of times it's the unlikely heroes. And it's kind of thing, they're talking about how Toronto coming into the series was favored. Of course, they had home field advantage at the beginning of the series. They don't anymore. They lost it after game 1, the home field advantage. But they had so much power in their lineup, that everybody was talking about. And the thing is, though, in the postseason, power doesn't necessarily translate well, because you can't count on the long ball, especially in the postseason when you're up against a higher caliber of pitching on a regular basis. You're going to be facing the top pitchers every game in the postseason. There isn't necessarily a weak spot in a lineup that makes the playoffs. Maybe once you get down to the 4th guy, but a lot of times in the playoffs, in the postseason, they'll put it down to a 3-man rotation, depending on who that 4th guy is. Even though historically speaking, you'd have a 4-man rot, maybe even 5. But these days, it seems like they go to a 3-man rotation in the postseason. But that's why you got to play small ball in the postseason. It's more about having the good pitching and having contact hitting, because contact hitting is something that's more reliable. And that's the thing, is you got to string those hits together, get guys on base, steal bases, do these types of things. That's going to translate well to the postseason, whereas if you're counting on a home run to save you, it might never come. They did have the 1 home run in the first inning, but then that was it, for Toronto. They stretched it to the 14 innings and everything, but that was the only home run they had. You can't count on those long balls. That's the thing. Even Donaldson, he almost hit a second home run there in extra innings in the 13th inning. And he actually had a heated exchange with Kela. And then even Encarnacion almost went deep to center in the 13th as well. But that's the thing, is they almost, and almost only counts, as we all know, cliche, horseshoes and hand grenades, but it doesn't count in baseball. Almost in home run is an out. So that's going to be dead on the warning track. But, Toronto, they're in big trouble here. Texas looks like they're moving on, and they get 2 games at home. So the series is theirs to win or lose. And I would not be surprised to see them sweep the way they have momentum in their favor. And also after a game like this, a 14-inning game, that's going to zap something out of you. Like, momentum is hugely in the clubhouse of the Rangers, especially like I said, after this big long game stretched out 14 innings. And now to go to Texas definitely has a very good chance of sweeping this series, in my opinion. The Blue Jays are on their last leg. It's win or go home at this point for them. And of course, Texas, they could lose 2 and they're still alive. And that's the thing, Toronto, the only way they win this is winning 3 straight. Can they do that against this Texas team? I don't think it's too likely. Of course, we'll see what happens in Texas. That's the thing, is once I get back to Texas, I expect Texas's bats to heat up a little more. I expect to see Josh Hamilton actually have some production at home. He didn't do anything in Toronto, but we'll see when they play Game 3. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. Hope you're having a good day and had a good week, and have a great weekend, and enjoy all the sports.